Hey everyone. So, what if I told you the most powerful medicine your body could ever need wasn't actually cooked up in some high-tech pharmaceutical lab? What if it wasn't patented by a massive corporation and, didn't come with that massive list of terrifying side effects printed in a font so small you literally need a magnifying glass to read it? Today, in this explainer, we're going to uncover a pretty incredible revelation. We're exploring the idea that the absolute ultimate medicines might just be the everyday foods and drinks that were commanded and celebrated in ancient scriptural texts. It's a pretty provocative question, right? But listen, these aren't just old wives' tales dressed up in religious language. Not at all. The compounds and the preparations we're looking at today, they are currently being rigorously studied in major peer-reviewed journals. We're talking university research programs and straight-up oncology and cardiology departments all over the world. And this brilliantly illustrates the great paradox of our time. I mean, think about it. We spend billions of dollars every single year on supplements, wellness products, and all these functional beverages that promise to basically fix what modern living keeps breaking. Meanwhile, the biblical world had already mapped out a completely comprehensive, practically free nutritional system that targets the very exact conditions destroying people's health today. So here's our journey for today. First, we'll look at the ancient pharmacy. Then, we'll cover ultimate summer hydration, fighting chronic inflammation, and supporting heart and metabolic health. Finally, we'll wrap up with your daily ancient protocol.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Section 1. The ancient pharmacy, modern biochemistry.
When we look closely at these ancient texts, we aren't just looking at, cute historical curiosities. The convergence here is honestly staggering. When we analyze the specific foods and drinks that were elevated as divine provision in Scripture, they are the exact same things our modern clinical science is identifying as the most powerful healing compounds on Earth. The science is literally catching up to something that was written down thousands of years ago. We are looking at real, verifiable pharmacology here.
Moving on to Section 2, Ultimate Summer Hydration and Beating Heat Stress.
Think about this for a second. Ancient people had to survive intense, brutal desert climates, right? They were marching and laboring under a scorching sun without the luxury of neon-colored commercial sports drinks. So how do they do it? Well, they used things like puska. This was the shared, everyday drink of agricultural laborers, and actually the standard field ration of the Roman legions. In the ancient texts, Boaz offered vinegar to Ruth in the fields, and Roman soldiers offered a sponge of sour wine to Jesus at the crucifixion. Why? Because a mixture of water, sour wine, or vinegar and a pinch of salt is a highly effective hydration formula. The acetic acid supports your gut and blood sugar, while that pinch of salt perfectly replaces the sodium you lose through heavy sweating. Nature already provided the perfect electrolyte balance right out of the gate. Just look at the numbers. A single cup of coconut water delivers up to 600 milligrams of potassium and 60 milligrams of magnesium. Just one small serving of medjool dates gives you rapid glucose and 167 milligrams of potassium. And goat's milk, which was the actual milk of the ancient Near East, packs a massive 327 milligrams of super bioavailable calcium per cup. These ancient staples don't just rival today's synthetic electrolyte replacements, they absolutely beat them. So here's a highly actionable recipe you can actually use to beat the heat this week. The ancient Israelites famously longed for the cucumbers of Egypt while they were wandering in the desert, and for really good reason. Cucumbers are about 95% water, and they are just loaded with potassium. When you combine half a sliced cucumber with bruised fresh mint leaves and a pinch of sea salt in cold water, you get this incredibly potent biochemical cooling system. The menthol in the mint actively tricks the cold receptors in your mouth and throat, literally cooling your body down from the inside out. It's brilliant. All right, Section 3, Fighting Chronic Inflammation with Ancient Healing. So how exactly did the ancient world treat pain, immunity, and chronic inflammation without relying on a pharmacy full of synthetic pills? Well, the ancient texts tell this amazing story of the warrior Jonathan eating wild honey in a field and his eyes literally brightening as his body recognized the real medicine. When the ancient world combined raw honey with raw ginger root, they basically created an unparalleled medical synergy. Hot water extracts the antimicrobial proteins from the honey along with the gingerols from the ginger. And get this, ginger inhibits both the COX-2 and 5-LOX inflammatory enzymes at the exact same time. Those are your body's primary inflammation switches. It's a dual pathway inhibition that a lot of modern pharmaceutical anti-inflammatories just flat out cannot replicate. We see this exact same kind of medical synergy in another ancient staple too, hyssop tea.
In Psalm 51, King David actually pleads, "Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean." Now, for millennia, this was mostly just viewed as spiritual poetry, but modern science shows us that hyssop is absolutely packed with rosmarinic acid. It is quite literally a pharmaceutical-grade respiratory medicine and a potent anti-inflammatory. God built this purification language around a Middle Eastern plant that genuinely purifies the human respiratory tract. How wild is that?
Next up, Section 4, Heart and Metabolic Health, our cardiovascular shield.
Let's look at how all this applies to the absolute biggest killers of the modern age: metabolic dysfunction and heart disease. Get ready for a massive wow factor here. In the Song of Solomon, pomegranate juice is romantically celebrated as this deliberate prepared drink. Well, when modern clinical nutrition researchers followed patients with severe carotid artery stenosis, which is dangerous plaque buildup, they found something amazing. The patients who drink pomegranate juice daily actually reduced their severe arterial plaque by over 30% over 3 years. 30%. Meanwhile, the control group actually saw their plaque increase. The ancients were basically prescribing a potent cardiovascular shield.
Now, what's really interesting about this next piece of data is the sheer power of simple, ancient vinegar. A randomized controlled trial found that consuming just 2 tablespoons of unpasteurized apple cider vinegar before a high-carbohydrate meal reduced post-meal blood sugar spikes by nearly 35%. 35%! It does this by activating an enzyme called AMKP, which is essentially the master metabolic regulator of your cells. We also see these metabolic miracles right out in the fields. The famous story of Ruth gleaning in the barley field connects directly to modern FDA-approved health claims today. You see, barley contains incredibly high concentrations of a powerful soluble fiber called beta-glucan. The water that's left over from simmering barley, it isn't just wastewater, it's potent immune-training medicine that forms a gel in your digestive tract, completely flattens out those blood sugar spikes, and produces clinically significant reductions in LDL cholesterol.
And finally, Section 5, your daily ancient protocol and actionable steps. Okay, so we've covered a lot of fascinating historical facts today, but honestly, they're kind of meaningless if we don't actually apply them to our lives. Making your own healing barley water is incredibly simple. All you do is simmer a quarter cup of pearled barley in water for about 30 minutes. Then strain out the grains and flavor the liquid with a bit of lemon and honey. That's it. This democratic grain was a staple that kept both ancient soldiers and everyday commoners alive through brutal famines, and now it can be your daily tool for metabolic health. So here is your start small checklist. I really urge you to pick just one of these habits to implement this week. Maybe it's brewing a cup of hyssop tea before bed, or taking 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar before a heavy meal, or maybe pressing some fresh pomegranate juice. Now, obviously, I have to say this absolutely does not replace your doctor's advice or any required medical care. But integrating these ancient practices, it beautifully enhances your overall health strategy. When you take a step back and really look at all this, it's hard not to marvel at a scriptural framework that seemingly understood molecular biology way before molecules were ever even named. The solutions were planted, described, and elevated thousands of years ago. So the only question left for you is this: which ancient drink will you add to your life this week? Think about it, pick one, and start fueling your body with the wisdom of the ancients. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.